Hi, adventure girl. Are you okay? Is your health okay? Is your health okay? She was traveling. Yeah, I call it the Today Show.
I heard you had a birthday.
We wear those pants.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not a bad thought.
Well, you look great.
Thank you. Should I go get my own? When I forget, where I said my phone. So we are going to get started. Wait, where is the website? Okay. We're going to get started. The big surprise of the morning is that Reverend Canon Cristi Chapman pulled into the parking lot at 7:15. She and I talked through open windows. She had a mask on. She has probably COVID and feels horrible. And she felt so terrible about being here. And I said in the most gracious way I could, go home. We don't want you. No, we do want her. And I know she knows we're recording this and the live stream is here. And I know she will watch it later, but she is not here facilitating this conversation this morning. So it is Brad and I. And actually, there's some opportunity here, I think, for us to talk and share and ask questions so that we know, so gather information, gather wonderings, gather curiosities, and also on a variety of fronts. And just kind of be together and hear where we all are. Because I don't know about you, but I have a big pot of emotions going on this morning. I've already cried quite a bit. I anticipate crying some more. And so we're all in this together. And that's what we get to do in this conversation and then when we're in this service.
So I think there are several things that we can accomplish. One is definitely have an opportunity to share.
Can you speak up a bit so they're coming to?
Right. So it is an opportunity for you to share the questions that are on your mind now. We'll be gathering those questions. Talk a little bit about how we're going in summer, because we've got an important next few weeks in front of us, because we're going to work through to the last minute.
We are all working together, and a lot of this was pre-planned,
Yep. So
Don't change.
We've got a summer of work plan. Talk a little bit about that, and then also communication strategies for us during this time of transition, because that's so important. Okay. So that's kind of what I have in mind. Maybe I'll start by just talking a little bit about communication strategies. And I'll be saying this again in the service instead of at 8:30. You're going to get a lot of information. Okay? So prepare yourself. So we will be using our existing communication strategies. So particularly the Wednesday communication and the epistle. So it's important that you and others, if you're not on that distribution list, that you are, because that's going to be an important way of doing that. But our plan, and when I say our, that's Jenny, that's your wardens, Brian and I, and the vestry. We will be letting you know, as we know information, we will let you know information. So the more we know, the more we will share with you. So we will have, and we're also going to use this time. So we're going to use the adult forums through the summer as important places where we can be in conversation and talk about next steps. Any questions about communication?
So I think the other wondering as a part of that is, as you come up with ideas for other sort of what are emerging needs for conversation, to communicate those, because if you are feeling the need to sort of gather in a particular way or hear something, you're not alone. And so I think it's just a good time to know that we cannot read one another's minds, and so share what's on your heart, so that we can make it happen, if it is humanly possible, to gather together to talk with one another. Because the idea, again, is to be in conversation and not just sort of sit with our own wonderings and stories. I don't know about you, but for example, when I do not hear from my children for extended periods of time, which happens more frequently than I would wish, my tendency is to create the narrative of why I haven't heard from them. And it's never in their favor or mine. So anyway, that's what, we want to be in conversation, not sort of having to sit and wonder with our own narratives.
And one other piece of information that I think is important for our community, and I outlined a bit of that in my letter, which is that it's amazing how the Spirit works. Because over the spring, in April, your vestry had a retreat where we spent some time saying, what are the big projects we need to undertake right now? And we identified two areas. One is clarifying our why, making more clear what our mission is. And so we have work happening this summer to clarify that. What perfect timing to be clarifying our mission. And the second piece is you all hang out here during the week and know that there is a ton that is happening in this place. So we have about 40-some ministries and activities going on at any particular time. So the vestry asks the question, are we organized in the best way to support this thriving, growing congregation? So we've got one group that's looking at how we're organized to accomplish our mission, and the other group working to clarify and identify our mission. And that was work that we set in place before this. So that's some key work that your vestry is going to be working on this summer. Again, in communication and participation with you. But I just think that's important because I think the timing is so perfect for preparing for the transition. So now, maybe we can open the floor to questions. What's on your mind? Albert?
And I'm going to write all of these down, just so you know. We also are obviously, as I said, to people come in, are recording this session so we can keep going back to it and not forget anything. So when you speak, please speak loudly, or we'll repeat the question. We're mostly collecting questions this morning. There aren't a lot of answers. So,
Okay. Okay. Several things. Okay. One, to avoid the elephant in the room. Can Jenny, could you or both of you tell us why we're in the situation that we're in, or what happened?
So I think we're going to have opportunity, obviously to unpack my letter, but my intent is to be fully open and transparent and honest of what I said in the letter in terms of this being a discernment process that Stuart and I have been on together. There's some things that I can tell you, we're going to be, there's some pieces, of course, and all I can say is there are some things that have impacted me that I didn't know about, that I didn't know they would impact me, and maybe you've had this experience where you don't know what you know until you know it and are in it. And so is this something that has been on my mind since the day I came in? It is not. Is this something that has been on my mind for a long period of time? It is not. I know that Stuart retired, as I said in my letter, a little over a year ago, and I think retirement, and I don't know this, but his process of retiring brought up some questions for him about what was next for him, that then started us on conversations about what was next for us. And again, these were not my questions because I'm not in it. And I'm still not in it. And so I still don't really know what that's like. I'm just beginning to think about that. Two other things I would say that have been impactful as I have begun to think about them. And again, this is not the full sum of everything, but some starters. He turns 70. He's 5 years older than I am and will turn 70 in December. I never thought about that, but it is coming up. And what has impacted some of my own thinking about it, and again, this is all discernment, and discernment unfolds. My father was diagnosed with glioblastoma when he was 74, and so thinking of Stuart entering the decade not too far off from that journey that my dad began. We all have these things which kind of come into the conversation at different times. So I will say that has kind of emerged for me more and more in the last couple of months, maybe. And then, I got this concussion while cross-country skiing at the end of January, and that has been an interesting journey of my body not healing in the way it normally has. And I still have some symptoms that emerged, not immediately, but emerged about 6 weeks ago. And again, I've never had, it's just all part of the jumble of discernment. So I know we're going to have more opportunity to talk about it. It really is my prayer. It has always been my prayer and my hope for all of us to be open and honest with one another wherever we are on our journey, because I really, as a sign of mutual respect and regard, and we are in this journey together, we're still in this journey together. I have such enormous affection and love for you all, and so that's what I have right now. Yeah.
I don't have a question. I just want to say, we love you, Jenny. We want you to be well. We want you to be happy. We want you and Stuart to love the rest of your lives which hopefully will be a long time.
Thank you.
Yes.
And here's what I know, this particular relationship will end and change, it'll change, but the relationships, I mean, the relationships do not end. They do not end. So, thank you.
I guess that is an assumption I made, that this was a type of death because of the role you have. And I mean, maybe I'm projecting what would happen if I, as a therapist, did this, where I actually can't connect with my people afterwards. Is that not true?
Well, I think we have a good example of Canon Joan in our midst, where the relationships and affection, mutual affection, and I don't want to speak for her, but Joan is very active in this community. I mean, I'm not sure what's ahead in terms of where Stuart and I will be living, but Joan springs to mind.
So a thing I think I do know is that a diocese and a church and whatever has centuries of experience with this kind of
Yes.
thing, and that there are probably some rules. I think with Joan, you relaxed one early.
We
which was-
observed it for 95% of the time.
So there.
Wanted to get that A.
Uh-huh.
Yes, always, but there are guidelines and we will respect those. Those are in place for real reasons, healthy reasons. And, just for those who don't know, typically, and this was the case with Joan, there was a year, usually there's a year of non-involvement. And again, those are in place for real reasons. In Joan's case, she was living in this community. This is her church. She's beloved, and she's got a good sense, having been the canon to the ordinary in the diocese. She knows full well the benefit of observing those guidelines. And so anyway, but yes, those do exist. They are in place. They are in place for a good reason. For me, part of what that means is clarity around kind of what's happening while I'm still here and while we're still in this relationship, and then clarity around sort of the time when that relationship is ending. Because I think the clarity is part of what matters for all of us, not just for me, but for everyone. So anyway, I really appreciate that, and we'll have time to talk about that. And that's part of what's not completely mapped out yet, sort of dates and things like that.
Catherine?
How do we take care of each other? How do we be sad? How do we be mad? How do we pay attention both to ourselves and to them?
Great question. I don't have an answer. Other than the question is the charge for it. Your question is the charge for us. That's our work, is how we are together as a parish community during a time of transition.
But honestly, not pretending we're happy or we're not afraid or whatever.
Allowing people to experience the transition in whatever way is most important to them. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think Catherine gave a great example of exactly what she's talking about with me yesterday. I got a text from her that said, oh man, I'm going to cry, of course, that said, can we meet and listen to each other about how we feel about Jenny leaving? Not talk to each other, listen to each other. And so we did, and it was a big deal.
Yeah.
I think that's part of that conversation and communication, because I think, again, there's, the Diocese of Spokane has something that's on their website, and every once in a while I put it out. Every year they come up with what they call a morning, just short prayers for the morning and the evening. It's not going through the daily office, but it's just a short morning prayer with some questions and short evening prayer with some questions. And the morning prayer, or maybe it's evening prayer, I was reading through it this past week just because I'm so drawn to it, is how can I be open this day? How can I be vulnerable this day? Or at the end of the day, how was I? What did I receive? What piqued my curiosity? And I've just been thinking of the spiritual discipline of staying attentive to the moment and being present to one another. It might be one of the gifts of this time for, as a spiritual discipline, not just because of a transition here is beginning, but because of the transitions and the unsettling news all around us of each and every day. It's that how to be present to this day. Why were we given this day? So I think we're going to need some help keeping that before one another, because I will only speak for myself. That is a very difficult spiritual discipline in this day and age.
Thank you, Jenny, for your explanation. As you said earlier, we fill in the blanks when we don't know, and so I'm really grateful that you've explained what I have intuited, but needed to hear. I'm in grief. And I know from my years of hospital ministry, I had a mantra that I would tell families. There's no right way to do grief. There's no wrong way to do grief. It just is. So be gentle with yourself. And we are all in some stage of grief right now.
Myself.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it's going to take a while. So I so appreciate your filling that vacuum that I was feeling with your explanations. That is hugely helpful. So I can just say thank you, and we just have to be patient with ourselves.
Gary?
I'd first like to say, I really appreciate your abilities in bringing people together and also sensitivity. What's going on. It's been on my mind the last year or so, a lot of things on my mind, that we should be spending more time helping the community get along. Finding out where people need help, providing that help in whatever way, that sort of thing. I've done a little bit of that with people that I've been connected with. But it would seem to be a good focus for this coming year. And for Jenny, the reason I came back to church is because of you. The spirit that you got, the change in this whole place. So it's, I'm in grief. I'm still trying to figure out what bothers me about this service, but I'll let that.
We have some time for some thoughts.
Thank you, Gary. That's really, really helpful. One of the things that I hear in your comment about what's the opportunity and task in front of us, and one of those opportunities is for us to not only be sharing how we're feeling, but ask how are we together as a community? What does it mean to be together and to be supporting one another and engaged in our mission as a church? How are we together as a community is an important question, I think, especially at this time. So I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront. Kate? Oh,
I was just,
Yeah, I actually, so this is something that's on my mind, and these things are coming out sort of not prepared. But I think of the gift of going through the experience, this is my hope, of a good goodbye and how that helps build community and compassion and empathy for one another and lifts up, I think, that who we want to be as a community. And I think of prior, I just think of, there's so many examples. Maybe you've got some in your own history of maybe not good goodbyes. And I don't mean that they're not rough or not filled with grief, but I just think on my mind is, what does a good goodbye look like? Because we will all grow from that, and the community, it's a maturing process in a good way. That's, anyway.
I just wanted to say thank you, Jenny. You have brought me closer to my spiritual journey, and I'm just hoping that we as a community can hold each other during this time. I just really appreciate you. Thank you.
And it's also a time for us to gather our gratitude for one another and for Jenny's incredible place among us. We are a different community than we were, 3 years ago. We were just preparing.
We were still wearing masks.
We were still wearing masks. Yeah. But we are in a very different place, and so much gratitude, and that's going to be our turf this summer, is gratitude, as well as all the other things associated with it.
Which is hard, I will say, and again, I am committed to speaking very honestly. It is really hard for me to receive gratitude. And if it is hard for you, we are in this together. So get ready to practice and work hard with me.
All right.
This, just as we talk, it's just a memory just came to me. So I don't know how prepared I am to present this, but it reminds me, when I was 19 years old, I lost a good friend in a logging accident. And when I went to his funeral, I was just absolutely petrified. I was scared. It was a Lutheran, he was Lutheran, and they had an open casket, and we were filed by to look at the body and this sort of thing, and I was just petrified. But when I got up and looked in the casket, all of a sudden I realized that my friend wasn't there. His body was, but he wasn't there. And I feel like the same kind of thing, no matter where you are, Jenny, your spirit will be with us and wherever you are. But whether you're bodily with us or not, but as the spirit that you brought, the spirit that you are, will remain with you and with whoever, wherever you happen to be. And so just like my friend Bobby, I will be sorry to see you go and not have a chance to share with you directly as much, but at the same time.
So let me thank you, Jenny, for all of the gifts and the things that you have brought to us from your heart, including the wisdom. This is a community of love. It's love that we share individually for each other and for you, and that we feel from you individually and collectively. So as I look into this murky future transition, I have to believe that it will be accomplished out of love, and with love and empathy and understanding. And none of us know where exactly, except ultimately where we're headed, but what it looks like in the coming days, months, years, we don't know. And the thing that we do know is that the love is still there. And the situation that we find ourselves in isn't because of a negative. It just is. So we're going to be wishing you well, as I know that you are wishing us well, and for the next few months we'll embrace and reinforce and plot a path. But thank you.
One of the places that I have felt that love and support in the last week, I'm really sorry that Canon Chapman is here this morning, but she has been amazing. A very, very supportive, loving individual who reminds me that we don't have to do this alone. We are part of a diocesan community that also loves and supports us. So I've just been really grateful for that in this last week.
So she was going to be here today, and she's hopefully home by now. I know she's going to follow up as soon as possible. I mean, she was planning things, even in the parking lot, apologizing and everything. It's like, just go. It's okay. But I know, there have been some questions. I always think of, there's the formal gatherings, more formal, where we're all together. And then there's what I think of as parking lot conversations. And I know where there might not be, where sometimes things are expressed more directly. And I know, for example, one question has come up. There have been a lot of questions about the process and what the diocese's role is going to be, and what that looks like, and whatever it looked like in prior times. Again, there are some guidelines. Diane, as you brought up and asked that question about formal dissolution of the rector-community relationship. But this is what we're going to be doing in conversation with the diocese, and Cristi is in communication with the bishop, and so he's not unaware at all. And in fact, just so you know, like one of the things that are on the to-do list is immediately after notifying the vestry and the congregation, the senior warden is to notify the bishop, and which Brad has done, But what Cristi said is just CC me on that email because the bishop already, I'm in communication with the bishop, and then the bishop will know that, and then everybody's going to be on the same page and know what's happening. And that's really the goal of this transition, including the diocese's goal is to keep us all sort of in the loop and not have, and if there are feelings at any time or perceptions that somebody, one party is making all the decisions, like say so, it feels as though this is happening, because then we can talk about it. And again, unpack, what we don't know, So again, invitation, be honest with one another and not expect that we can read one another's minds, including the diocese's minds. They are very much partners in this, and
How do we work on creating space for what is next? And so, the dilemma about you is that you feel irreplaceable. And I know that's not true.
I don't feel that.
Well, I know you don't do that, but
I don't
I'm
wake up
imagining
and
I'm not the only
think.
person that feels that. And so, we have that space to let whatever and whoever's next be themselves and be here and not have to be Jenny, which is, you've created a really unique problem, Jenny, because you're, you. So, right? So it feels to me like we actually have to do conscious work about that. That we have to figure out ways that we're not going to sabotage whoever is next until whatever the process is, I guess. Well, the right kind of thing to do it.
So much
Elaine?
Sorry?
That's why we have a meeting.
Do you want to speak to, we don't know what the decision is, but
Yeah.
there is probably going to be a decision.
That is one of the next is what happens after August 3rd. And the Episcopal Church has at least two options for that. One is an interim priest, and the other is a priest in charge.
Now beyond this, nothing is known.
Nothing is known. And I'm still learning about the distinction between those two things. But it really is dependent. The first question is, what does this community need and want in interim leadership? That's the key question. And then the answer to that question will tell us, do we need a priest in charge or an interim priest?
And this takes us back to the work of this summer. Because the mission, clarifying work, it isn't that we don't have three missions. So it's mission clarifying work for this time and place here on South Britain. It's why it's so essential, and the organizational structure, because this is not a case, I think because it will allow this community to speak about where we are. And that's what determines what the needs are, based on our understanding of where we are and who we are, and what path we are on with our mission of living more fully into our mission.
What's the difference between a priest in charge
I'll take my stab.
That's what Cristi was gonna explain.
And take my interpretation with a grain of salt, because I'm still learning. My understanding is the priest in charge can also be a candidate for a permanent position, whereas the interim is typically not.
Right.
So, so in that sense, a priest in charge is also sort of in a discernment process with the congregation. That's my understanding. And if it's faulty, I'll make sure to get the right. But, yeah.
It's probably, yeah.
Is it possible to do both, to have an interim initially and then at some point?
I don't know.
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah. Good question.
I mean, I think this is a hard hire. Seriously, replacing Jenny is daunting, but it's also location and a whole lot of other things that are,
Oh, yeah.
right? So maybe being able to extend that process and yet have somebody who could potentially, if they decide this works for them and vice versa.
I think that's why these conversations are gonna be, why honest conversations are essential. Because there's so many factors that go in.
Well, I'm gonna take you back to the emotion of this. And that is, what is discernment to you? I have my own idea of what discernment is when I'm making a difficult decision, but what, for you, what is that process? And how do you know you've reached a point where you're clear about that decision?
I don't think I have an answer today, but I would love to, again, that deserves a longer, fuller conversation. Because I think that is the question, honestly.
It is the question.
Of, again, not just this decision, but, or St. Augustine's decision, but the kind of the question of our time.
Right.
So
Right.
that's a big question.
Yeah, but
And I
it's,
do not
but
want
it
to
is
diminish
the
it.
point. There's that, like, the book we just went through, there's the blank chalkboard, and then there's the one dot. And this is what we know about God and period. And all the rest we don't. So, but it's the important dot. And when you come to a decision like this, how do we have clarity? How do we have clarity as a community? How do we have clarity as a priest? How do we have clarity as a person of faith? And I know that in my own life, that has been pray until I have peace. That's where discernment has landed me. But this is so important. I'll leave it there.
This is somewhat of a repeat, but we need this. When and how are we going to explicitly invite and name what we're afraid of?
Can you repeat that?
When are we going to explicitly invite and name what we are afraid of in Jenny's sleeping? I'm hoping that we'll have lots of, I think that's going to be an ongoing, just as discernment is not a clear beginning to them, but naming what we're afraid of out loud. Out loud, I could probably give a list of 20 things that I've already been afraid of today. So, yeah, thank you.
I was going to say, I was on the last transition committee when we invited you, Jenny, and I thought, we've been through this before, not very long ago, and shoot, that'll help a lot with the experience that we had before. Then I realized that was almost 5 years ago, and this congregation has changed considerably since then. It's not 100% turnover, but a lot. And so it's not just a simple matter of picking up the pieces where we were before, but it's using that as a resource for what we need to do and be now. But things change, and they're changing. It doesn't take a long time either for change that happen. But anyway, we do have the previous experience, and there are a significant number of us that have been through this already, so it will help.
And I think that the questions are going to be jumping off from that. There's a lot of data, I know, that was collected, and a lot of conversations. And so some of the conversation becomes, how have we changed?
Mm-hmm.
And what still rings true?
I think the question that came to my mind is, when the decision was made, is can we continue to go forward in Jenny's absence? And the reason I say that, like Albert, I've been here so long and I've been through a lot of iterations of priests, and we came from a very bad place. And the congregation has grown under Jenny, and my fear is, can we as a congregation keep moving forward and not get swayed in your absence and just
That's certainly my hope, is that, because the plane has already left the runway. The rocket has already taken off from the launch pad.
hope it wasn't Elon Musk rocket.
It wasn't, you know, and over the last week, again, I've just been thinking so much about we've used the term a lot, abundance of this place in so many ways, and we're in a different place than we were a year ago. We're in a different place than we were 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and it just, my sense is that, no, we don't stop. We keep going. Because it's good work, and it's our call.
Jenny, I think you could probably talk to us for a day about why you're leaving, and there would still be questions in our minds potentially. I have a core question about it. Are you okay? Are you going to be okay?
I mean, that's my hope.
Well, but see, there's.
I mean, I am okay. Yes, I am okay. My brain still needs some healing from this concussion, and that is important. And it's hard for me. It's been hard for me to pay attention. It isn't the be all to the end all of this decision. I would say it was an accelerant. I mean, yes. I mean, I feel like my brain's in good shape right now. But it could do better. If anybody else is in the same situation.
Mark, and then also Michael at times.
No, I was just raising my hand as being in that
Oh.
range.
Yeah.
Mary?
Was there any deliberateness in your announcement being made on Ascension Day, a feast day that I have no clue of understanding? And I thought it was an interesting juxtaposition, so I'm just wondering if that was deliberate.
So I will, this seems like a good time to remind everyone, my initials are JC. No, I'm just kidding. No. But it did,
But the spirit was involved.
The spirit was involved. It's always been a weird,
Yeah.
you know, kind of, I mean, does anybody ever know what to make of Ascension Day? No. But,
It's nice.
yeah. I mean, it is, yeah, it has a different take on it for me this year than it ever has. And some deeper meaning that it made me understand it. It was not planned.
But there are others who have,
Teresa sent me an email.
Teresa and Frank, who are on pilgrimage, have just
Celebrated
concluded
this.
a service celebrating something good and reflecting. So when they come back, ask them about their response to us after the service celebrating Ascension. Somewhere in this.
Somewhat similar to Albert, your comment about philosophy
Yeah.
before we did that.
So, yes, the invitation for all of us is, first of all, we pray. We're a community of prayer, and then the second charge for us is communication. Sharing our fears, our hopes, our feelings of grief, our expectations for what next, communication. So our job is to make some spaces for that, to make sure you have that. But when you have a question, let us know.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
So when I accepted the call to come here, I made a commitment to myself, and it was to belly flop. To acknowledge that I was going to have some pretty big belly flops. And so as we enter this time that is, there's so much that is not known, I know there will be belly flops. That's the thing. So even as we talk about communication and having conversation, I just want to be really upfront. There's going to be belly flops. So we just have to keep letting one another know, hey, that stunk. Or is there anything we can do to maybe not come down so hard again? Do you know what I'm saying? So there's no protection. Even if you're wearing a onesie, but I, it's like, let's learn from whatever belly flops happen and failures happen, and because this is, we get to do this together.
This is a creative process, and if you focus on the failures, you'll never take the next step. So we need to focus on the positive.
Well, I'm just saying, it might,
Of course they might.
I'm talking to myself.
I trip and fall all the time.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. More to come. Grateful for each other.
We do want to keep putting forth like some frequently asked questions and things, so if you have a question on your part that you didn't ask, or that comes up at any time, email Brad, me, express it in any way you need to one of us, because we want to keep these questions before us all. And know that, you're not alone in your
Is there
question.
going to be a box where we can just write things we suddenly think of and?
Well, see, I think I think we will find some opportunity, some way to do that.
So we have the option of talking to a person directly, but we can also just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also have my phone number?
Yeah, we also also want to talk about Sundays, and Brad, does he still want to worship? Which I think is a good thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Time for my second reading.
Yes, it is.
Jincy left some over there.
So, before you go,
Yes.
just occurred to me, you all, blessed be the tithe of time. Everybody know that?
Yes.
Do you? Can we stand and join hands and sing?
Not a closed circle, though.
I got it. Okay, everybody on the two?
You can have it, even if you don't know the words, which I did not.
Okay.